Welcome back, deep divers. We're back in the occult archives, and you know what that means. Another deep dive into a book that stirred up quite a bit of fear and fascination over the years.
It's true. These texts, they often hold secrets that some might say are a little too powerful, maybe even dangerous for the average reader.
Well, that's exactly why we're here, right? To sort of decode these secrets, make them a little more accessible. And today, we've got a book that's, well, its title alone is pretty evocative. The Yellow Book.
By Samael Aun Weor.
Right, by Samael Aun Weor, first published way back in 1959.
And Global Gray released an ebook edition in 2024 for those who are curious.
You can find it on their website, by the way. But, when you see a title like The Yellow Book, it just makes you think of, I don't know, hidden knowledge, secret societies, that kind of thing.
Definitely has that mysterious vibe.
It does. But this book, it's not just some, cryptic collection of spells and incantations. It's actually a guide to, get this, awakening the Kundalini.
That powerful energy that's said to be dormant within all of us.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then using that energy to achieve something called Gnostic transformation. So basically, we're going to take all these, what are they called, esoteric concepts, and we're going to break them down in a way that, anyone can understand.
That's the goal anyway. Because the Yellow Book, let me tell you, it gets pretty deep.
I bet it does. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I think it's important to mention, this book, it deals with some pretty intense stuff. It's not for the faint of heart, I guess you could say.
No, it's definitely not light reading.
Right. And we're not here to endorse any particular belief system or tell you what to think. We're just here to explore the ideas presented in the book, analyze them, discuss them.
That's our mission, to present the information as objectively as possible.
Exactly. So with that said, let's dive into the Yellow Book, shall we? Right off the bat, it introduces this concept of the adorable Mother Kundalini. Kind of an interesting name, right?
It is, and it sets the tone for the book's very reverent approach to this energy. The book describes it as the burning fire of the Holy Spirit.
Oh, wow.
And it gives this whole list of other names like Mary, Maya, Isis.
Whoa. So it's connecting this energy to various divine feminine figures.
Exactly. It's saying that this Kundalini energy, it's not just some abstract force, it's deeply tied to these powerful archetypes.
That's fascinating. And so how does this Kundalini energy actually manifest in the real world? What does it do?
Well, the book links it to all sorts of fundamental forces. It talks about love, electricity, universal magnetism, even the cosmic force that created the universe.
Whoa, hold on. So this Kundalini thing, it's like the glue that holds everything together.
That's one way to put it. The book even credits Kundalini with, get this, establishing the laws of cohesion and planetary gravity. Yeah. Pretty big claims.
Huge claims. Okay, so this is some serious cosmic power we're talking about. And where does this this powerful energy reside within us? Where is it located?
Well, according to the Yellow Book, the Kundalini is coiled up like a serpent 3.5 times within the Cossageal Church.
The what now?
The Cossageal Church. It's another way of saying the area around the tailbone.
Oh, right, the tailbone. Okay, so it's down there, at the base of the spine. And what does it do from there?
Well, from there, it has the potential to, how do they put it, open the 7 apocalyptic churches of the spinal medulla. Those are what we commonly call the chakras.
Right, the chakras, those energy centers along the spine. So the Kundalini is the key to unlocking all these chakras.
Exactly. And this opening is supposed to happen gradually, moving upwards along the spine from the tailbone to the crown of the head.
Okay, so if someone wants to connect with this adorable Mother Kundalini, how do they go about doing that? What does the book say?
Well, it emphasizes the importance of seeking her within the heart temple. It says that she needs to be sought internally, within oneself. It's all about cultivating that inner connection.
So it's not about going to some special place or performing some elaborate ritual. It's about looking inward.
Exactly. The book stresses that she alone can awaken her children within the universal spirit of life. It's very much an internal process.
Interesting. And does the book say anything about, what kind of mental state is conducive to connecting with this Divine Mother?
It does. It suggests that a quiet and silent mind is particularly pleasing to her.
Ah, so it's about stilling the mind, quieting those mental chatter.
Right. The book even links this mental stillness to the possibility of achieving peace through mind control. It's about mastering your thoughts instead of letting them master you.
That makes sense. Now, the book also talks about venerating spiritual masters, right? And engaging in esoteric practices, but with a specific ingredient.
Faith. They say faith is essential for achieving samadhi, a state of spiritual ecstasy.
Right, samadhi. And apparently the Yellow Book is meant to be like a roadmap to help people become true masters of samadhi.
Pretty ambitious goal.
Yeah.
But the book also warns about the potential dangers on this path.
Oh, right. It talks about those.
Yeah, it mentions dangers both inside and outside on this, as it calls it, path the razor's edge.
So there's a need for caution, careful navigation. I can see that.
Definitely. And there's also this recurring mention of seminal liquor. It plays a pretty big role in the book's teachings.
Yeah, that term keeps popping up. We'll have to get into that a bit later, I think.
Absolutely. But let's stick with the Divine Mother for now. The book attributes to her the power to open all the chakras of the astral body.
All of them.
Wow. Yes, and then it gets even more interesting because it says she dwells within electrons. Electrons. The tiny particles that make up everything.
That's pretty wild. So she's like at the core of existence itself.
That's the idea. And this leads the book to encourage practices like meditation and adoration directed towards electrons.
So not just meditating on like a deity or a symbol, but on the very building blocks of reality.
Right. It's about connecting with the divine on that fundamental level. And then the book goes on to talk about the role of perfect couples.
Oh, interesting. What do they do?
They work together, using the power of love, to raise the Kundalini energy up through the central channel of the spine, the medulla canal.
Okay, so it's a joint effort, a partnership.
Exactly. And this is where that concept of seminal liquor comes back into play. The book talks about the importance of carefully managing this liquor, avoiding something called nocturnal emissions.
Through a practice called, what was it, Arcanum, AZF?
Yes, Arcanum AZF. It's a key practice in the Yellow Book, and we'll definitely explore it in more detail later.
Okay, sounds good. Now, apart from this Arcanum AZF, does the book give any other advice for, maintaining well-being on the spiritual path?
It does. It talks about the importance of having relaxed muscles, a flexible spine, drinking pure water, rising at dawn, and following a healthy diet full of honey, fruits, grains, and plants.
So it's like a whole lifestyle approach. It's not just about the esoteric practices.
Right. It's about holistic well-being. And all of this is presented as part of what the book calls practical transcendental occultism.
Transcendental occultism, huh? That's a mouthful.
It is. And the book emphasizes the specific yoga practices it deems necessary for the Aquarian era, which is, the astrological age we're currently in. And it stresses the importance of gentleness and mercy on this path.
Okay, so a gentler, more compassionate approach to occultism. That's interesting. But speaking of yoga, the book seems to have some pretty strong opinions about certain types of yoga, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it does. It specifically calls out Hatha yoga, the kind that focuses on physical postures.
Right, Hatha yoga. What does it say about that?
Well, it straight up dismisses it as spiritually fruitless. It compares the physical postures to, get this, circus acrobatics. It's like they're saying, hey, all that bending and twisting is not going to get you anywhere spiritually.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement. So if Hatha yoga is out, what kind of yoga does the Yellow Book advocate for?
It talks about ancient Gnostic Christian yoga. And it emphasizes that the most important thing in this type of yoga is love.
Love. Okay, so not stretching or, standing on your head, but love.
Exactly. The book calls love the greatest thing in life. It says nothing can replace it, not even fancy yoga poses. And even mentions the ancient Eleusinian mysteries.
Ooh, what?
The Eleusinian mysteries. They were these secret rites held in ancient Greece. And according to the book, they used love, dancing, even sexual magic to help people transform spiritually.
Okay, so things are getting a little more interesting now. And how does this sexual magic tie into the idea of love as the foundation?
Well, the book talks about how when a couple engages in sexual adoration, they can accumulate the power of the cosmic mother. And this power, in turn, activates the chakras.
Oh, wow. So it's connecting sexual energy to the chakras.
Yes, it's establishing a very direct link between intimacy and spiritual energy. And it goes on to describe these chakras as energy centers that look like wheels or lotus flowers.
Right, the classic chakra imagery. I've seen those before.
And the book says that certain fires within us, like the Jehovistic fire in the spine, the Christic fire in the heart, and the Father fire in the eyebrows, are actually a form of transmuted semen.
Wait, hold on. Semen? Like that semen?
Yep, that semen. Remember that term seminal liquor that keeps coming up? Well, the book says it holds the key to redemption.
Redemption. That's a big word. How does semen relate to redemption?
Through sublimation. That's basically a fancy way of saying refining or elevating something. The book says that this seminal liquor needs to be sublimated upwards towards the heart.
Okay, so it's not just about, what happens physically, but about redirecting that energy, taking it to a higher level.
Exactly. And it's in this elevated state that the Divine Mother can find the internal Christ within the individual. So it's like this semen, this liquor, it becomes a vessel for spiritual transformation.
That's quite a concept. But then the book introduces a pretty big caveat. It says that while sexual connection within a couple is necessary, spilling the semen is strictly forbidden.
Right. They call this act Hermes glass. And they warn that if you break this glass, if you spill the semen, the forces of the goddess Isis will withdraw.
And what happens then?
You descend into the abyss.
The abyss. That sounds ominous. So the stakes are pretty high here, it seems.
They are. The book is really emphasizing the importance of conserving and transforming that sexual energy. And then it introduces this mantra, IAO.
IAO, what's that about?
It stands for Ignis, Aqua, and Origo, fire, water, and origin. And it's said to synthesize the Arcanum AZF. You're supposed to vocalize this mantra during the practice of, you guessed it, sexual magic.
So it's like a sound tool for that particular practice. And what's the ultimate goal of all this, of the Arcanum AZF?
Transformation. The book says that when a man and woman unite through this practice, they can potentially become divine beings.
You gods. That's a pretty big claim.
It is. And then the book goes on to talk about the importance of creating a harmonious environment. It suggests cultivating happiness, having music and flowers in the home, and practicing mutual forgiveness within couples.
So it's not all about esoteric techniques. It's also about fostering positive relationships and creating a loving atmosphere.
Exactly. And the book says that any discord in love comes from the psychological I, which it equates with Satan.
Interesting. So inner harmony is key to creating outer harmony.
That seems to be the message. And then it gives this whole summary of Gnostic Christian yoga. It includes practices like love, music, dance, perfumes, kisses, adoration, pranayama, meditation, illumination, wisdom, and happiness. Quite the list.
It is, and it's all about, following the teachings of Christ and adoring the feminine principle.
Right. It's a big shift from the, as the book calls it, tortures of hatha yoga.
So a more loving and reverent approach to yoga. Okay, I'm starting to get the picture, but let's talk more about this Kundalini thing. What exactly is it, beyond all the metaphors and symbols?
Well, the book dedicates a whole chapter to it. And it describes the Kundalini as this primordial energy located in what it calls the Church of Ephesus.
Another church. Where's that located?
This one's in the body, near the coccyx, the tailbone. It's considered a magnetic center.
Okay, so it's that same spot where the Kundalini is coiled up.
Exactly. And the book reminds us that it's coiled 3.5 times, lying dormant within this energetic center.
Like a sleeping serpent waiting to be awakened.
Right. And it keeps emphasizing that this Kundalini is the Divine Mother, the Pentecostal fire, with her sacred dwelling place within the heart.
So it's connecting this energy to the divine feminine again.
Yes. And it talks about how the Kundalini develops within the aura of Mahachohan. Mahachohan is another name for the Cosmic Mother or the Holy Spirit. So it's like the Kundalini is nurtured and empowered by this divine feminine energy.
Wow, that's pretty powerful imagery.
It is. And then the book goes on to describe 3 different types of fire: the Jehovistic fire, the Christic fire, and the Father's rays.
3 types of fire, huh? What's the difference between them?
I'm not sure we have time to get into all the specifics, but basically they represent different aspects of divine energy. And the book says that the ascent of Kundalini is controlled by the merits of the heart.
The merits of the heart. So your actions, your intentions, they influence how this energy rises.
Exactly. And the Kundalini doesn't just shoot straight up. It first moves towards the brain and then descends to the heart.
So it's like a 2-stage journey, a rising and a grounding.
Right. And remember how the book said the Divine Mother dwells within electrons? Well, it says the same thing about the Kundalini.
So again, this energy is present at the most basic level of reality.
Yes. And it's something that sages meditate on and devotees adore.
Wow. Okay, so let's say someone wants to awaken this Kundalini energy. How do they do it? What's the trigger?
The book says it's the union of solar and lunar atoms within the triveni.
Oh, what?
The trigeni.
Okay.
It's a specific location near the coccyx, the tailbone.
Oh, right, that area again. And how do these solar and lunar atoms unite?
Through something called electric induction. It's almost like an energetic spark. And when these atoms unite, the Kundalini awakens and the person drinks the nectar of immortality.
The nectar of immortality. That sounds amazing. And how do you actually make this happen? How do you trigger this electric induction?
The book lists a bunch of methods, including sexual magic practiced with pranayama, concentration, meditation, devotion, willpower, comprehension, and mantras.
So there are a lot of different paths to the same goal.
Right. And it also mentions that you can get help from White Brotherhood masters.
White Brotherhood masters.
They're basically like advanced spiritual beings who can guide you. Or, the book says, you can awaken the Kundalini through the grace of the Divine Mother.
Okay, so it can happen through personal effort, guidance from spiritual teachers, or divine intervention. But there's also a big warning, right, about what not to do.
Yeah, the book is very clear about that. It says that spilling the semen prevents the Kundalini from awakening. And it describes the ascent of the Kundalini as a slow, difficult process filled with trials and sacrifices.
So it's not for the faint of heart, this path?
No, it requires serious dedication and willpower. The book even says you have to eliminate the shadow of desire.
Wow, that sounds tough. But what about the end goal? What happens when the Kundalini reaches the pineal gland?
That's when you achieve perfect ecstasy. And even though the Kundalini is usually depicted as a serpent, the book says it can also appear as various divine mother figures, like Isis or Mary.
So it can take different forms depending on the person's experience.
Exactly. And the book describes all sorts of amazing things that happen when the Kundalini awakens, like marvelous visions, a multitude of sounds, the development of psychic abilities, and this brilliant light, like 10,000 suns.
Whoa, that's intense. But what happens if, you slip up? What if you spill the semen after the Kundalini has already started to rise?
The book says the Kundalini will descend back down the spine. It's like you lose all that progress.
Yikes, that's a big setback. So this whole idea of preserving seminal energy, it's really crucial to the whole system.
It is. The book even goes so far as to say that a person who engages in fornication can never achieve cosmic self-realization. It compares semen to water, saying it's the necessary environment for the fire of the Kundalini to burn.
So chastity is like the foundation, the starting point.
Exactly. And it says that all the powers of Kundalini reside within the semen, and raising its energy to the pineal gland is how you achieve superconsciousness, or nirvikalpa samadhi.
Okay, so it's all about redirecting that energy upwards, towards the highest chakra. Got it.
And the book goes on to describe the illuminated state, the dwelling place of Kundalini within the celestial triangle, this superluminous four-petaled lotus that's connected to the earth element. And then it gives this whole detailed explanation of each chakra, what happens when the Kundalini reaches it, what powers you gain, what element it's associated with.
It's like a map of spiritual and energetic anatomy.
Exactly. You learn about the powers over earth elementals, control of waters and tempests, the dominion over volcanic fires, the ability to enter suprasensible worlds in your physical body.
Wow, this is getting into some pretty mind-blowing stuff.
It is. And it all culminates in becoming a king or queen and priest or priestess of nature, according to this ancient order called the Order of Melchizedek. And it even tells you where the atoms of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are located within the head.
It's like a blueprint for spiritual transformation. But what about these two witnesses the book keeps mentioning? Who are they?
They're described as these two channels that are intertwined around the spinal medulla, forming the Holy Eight and the caduceus of Mercury.
Right, the caduceus of Mercury. That's a pretty well-known symbol. I've seen it before. But what are these channels actually, like anatomically speaking?
The book says they're the two sympathetic cords that run along either side of the spinal medulla. They rise up, and then they alternate positions, forming a knot between the eyebrows before continuing to the nostrils.
So it's like our own internal version of the double helix.
That's a good way to put it. And what's interesting is that they cross over. The right side ends on the left, and the left side ends on the right. And they have different temperatures. The left one is cold and lunar, while the right one is hot and solar.
So again, this duality, this interplay of opposites.
Exactly. And these cords are the pathways that the solar and lunar atoms of the seminal system use to ascend to the brain.
Oh, so they're connected to that seminal liquor we keep talking about.
They are. And the book says that when these cords make contact in the coscyrix, it inevitably awakens the Kundalini.
Another piece of the puzzle falls into place. But the book also mentions something about the medullar canal, right? The central channel of the spine.
Yes, it says that the interior opening of the medullar canal is normally closed, but it can be opened by these seminal steams. This allows the Kundalini to enter and begin its ascent.
So it's like unlocking a door to let the energy flow through.
That's a good analogy.
Right.
And if you want to speed up the process of opening this canal, The book recommends pranayama.
Pranayama, those specific breathing exercises, they can open this canal faster.
That's what the book says. It's like a targeted, energetic technique.
Interesting. But what about the knots and impediments the book mentions? What are those?
They're basically like blockages in the flow of energy along the spine. And as the Kundalini rises, it untangles these knots and removes these impediments.
So it's not always a smooth ride.
No, it can be challenging. And there's another warning about polarizing the fire in the lower chakras.
Polarizing the fire. How does that happen?
By experiencing daily sexual passion without spilling the semen.
Okay, so even if you're conserving the energy, if you're constantly aroused, it can create an imbalance.
Right. The book says this can lead to the loss of the joy associated with the 1,000-petaled lotus, the Lawatiya chakra.
The one that grants perfect ecstasy, right?
Yes. So even though you're not spilling the semen, the constant focus on sexual desire can be detrimental.
So it's not just about physical actions, but about mental and emotional purity as well.
Exactly. The book emphasizes the need for chastity in thought, word, and action if you want to raise the Kundalini over the staff of the spine.
And this needs to be combined with daily meditation, abstaining from alcohol, and maintaining cleanliness and purity.
Right. It's a whole lifestyle, a commitment to purifying yourself on all levels.
And to emphasize the importance of these two witnesses, the book even quotes from the book of Revelation. It compares them to 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks.
It's drawing on those powerful biblical images to highlight their significance within this esoteric system.
Okay, so we've got the Kundalini, the chakras, the 2 witnesses, this whole intricate system of energies. But what about the Divine Mother? Where does she fit into all of this?
The book says she's the guiding force behind it all. She helps the Kundalini awaken, she guides devotees through the chakras, she assists Gnostic students in their practices, and she ultimately prepares them for self-realization.
So she's like a spiritual guide, a protector on this path.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes the importance of faith in the Divine Mother. It urges devotees to beseech her for the sacred fire of Kundalini and to meditate on her daily once it's been awakened. It even includes a prayer by Swami Sivananda as an example of how to connect with her.
So it's not just about willpower and technique. It's also about surrendering to a higher power, asking for guidance and support.
Exactly. And the book promises that the Divine Mother always responds, and her grace is essential for the Kundalini to reach its full potential. It's a path that requires both personal effort and divine assistance. But let's move on to something a little more, shall we say, musical.
Oh, yeah. The book has a whole chapter on a mantric song for the awakening of the Kundalini, right?
It does. And it's not your typical song. It's considered so powerful that it was taught by an angel named Arak.
An angel. Wow. Okay, that's pretty impressive. So what's the song?
It's pretty simple, actually. It goes like this. Candle bandle. Rrr.
Candle bandle. That's it.
That's it. But the pronunciation is key. The can is resounding. The dill is decreasing. Then ban, again resounding, dill decreasing. And the R is this rolled, high-pitched motor sound, but with a childlike sweetness.
Okay, I can see how that would be tricky to get right. But what about the letter S? The book mentions that too, right?
Yes. The book says that anyone working with a Kundalini must not overlook the importance of the letter S. It has the power to transform the seminal liquor into 7 different types of energy.
7. Wow, that's a lot.
It is. And the pronunciation is very specific. It has to be a very fine and affable whistle made with the teeth gently together.
Okay, so not just any old S sound. It's a very precise technique.
Exactly. And the book reminds us about Hermes's glass, the importance of keeping that energy contained, not spilling it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you lose all that carefully transmuted energy.
So it's like a delicate balance. You have to build up this energy and then carefully direct it without letting it escape.
Right. And the book connects this S sound to the Kriya of Babaji, a specific yogic practice, and to this still small voice that the prophet Elijah heard.
Oh, interesting. I've heard about that still small voice. It's like a whisper of divine wisdom, right?
Yes. And the book says that there's this finer inner whistle behind the pronounced S sound. And when that inner sound reaches the cerebellum in the brain, it grants instantaneous astral projection.
Wow. So it's not just about the physical sound, but about the subtle, energetic vibrations it creates.
Exactly. And you have to practice consistently with this S sound to develop this ability.
Okay, so we've got the mantric song and the S whistle, both crucial tools for awakening the Kundalini. But what about this chapter on children of wisdom? What's that about?
This is where the book gets into the topic of, creating children. But not just any children, children of wisdom.
Right. And it makes it very clear that these children are not offspring of fornication. So there's a very specific way of going about this, it seems.
There is. It's actually quite a demanding process.
Yeah.
The book says that if you want to give a physical body to a White Lodge master, a very advanced spiritual being, you have to descend to the ninth sphere with the ninth tarot arcanum, and that arcanum represents sex.
So it's about using sexual energy for a higher purpose, to bring in a soul that's already spiritually evolved.
Exactly. And the preparation for this is pretty intense. The mother has to spend 9 months praying to the Divine Mother, asking for the blessing of conceiving this great master, maintaining strict chastity, cultivating saintly qualities, and meditating regularly.
Wow, that's like a 9-month spiritual retreat leading up to conception.
It is. And the father has to abstain from sex for 9 months as well, and join his partner in prayer. And then there's the timing of the actual act, the sacred copula. It has to happen in the spring, during the month of May, on a Friday at dawn, when the morning star is vibrating intensely.
So there's a very precise astrological alignment that's required.
Yes. And the union has to happen without ejaculation or orgasm.
So again, it's about containing that energy, not letting it spill.
Right. And the book says that the lunar hierarchy, a group of spiritual beings associated with the moon, helps with this process. They use a single male gamete and a single female ovum to create the child.
So it's not about the usual biological process of millions of sperm competing to fertilize an egg. It's about a very deliberate and selective act.
Exactly. And the mother is even given instructions on how to sleep during her pregnancy, different positions for each month to benefit the child. It's a very intentional and almost ritualistic approach to creating life.
It is, and the book calls this method Kriya Shakti. It says it was practiced in ancient temples of mysteries where childbirth was supposedly painless.
It's fascinating. And then the book makes this really strong statement about the whole idea of ejaculation being necessary for procreation.
Right. It challenges that conventional belief.
It contrasts the biblical injunction to be fruitful and multiply with a condemnation of ejaculation as brutal fornication. It even suggests that in the Garden of Eden, before the fall, reproduction happened without ejaculation or orgasm.
Wow, so it's going back to that original state of purity.
Exactly. And it blames the whole idea of